Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session, which is called SMEs Overcoming Market Barriers with Research. This section will be focused on a discussion regarding these topics, but we will start with the keynote speaker, Paulo Valente. So I will share the presentation, and please welcome Paulo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just very good. And I will tell you when it is the right moment to change the slide. Okay, very good. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to share with you some ideas about SMEs and how there are several barriers for research that can be overcome with the work, especially on the policy angle. It's something that I was asked to share some experiences and some ideas. So next slide, please, Anna. Okay, that is probably an important information. Okay, so what I will focus is mostly how can SMEs be a market shaper on the data economy. We all know, next slide, please. We all know that the digitalization is taking place. Today, let me first introduce you myself. My name is Paulo Valente. I'm the responsible of a small and medium enterprise that is working on the digital arena. I'm also part of Digital SME Alliance, which is an association that represents more than 30 national and regional SME associations. Just to give you a quick overview for those that don't know it, overall the association represents more than 45 SMEs that operate on the ICT sector. It's structured in a way that has several working groups. I chair the working group that is focused on smart communities, but there are also on cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data, also standardization and other. So the association is also very active on the project proposals that are in line with the EU. And also we have more than 450 experts that work on the working groups. Next slide, please. This is a quick overview about the association. So regarding the digitalization, I would like to call attention, at least it's something that we can all agree that digitalization is a catalyst for data generation. It's something that is very important for companies. It has untapped many and multiple opportunities for new business models, but we can also be very proud and very fierce that the SMEs have always been engaged on this since the beginning. I think many very interesting companies have found new ways of developing their business. They propose new ways dealing with the new opportunities. However, we that deal with this question every day have been faced with a problem, which is that the access to data generated from the digitalization process is uneven, and SMEs face multiple barriers. So the players don't have the same toolbox available for their activity. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, very good. So one thing that has happened is that the data economy has become pivotal in the EU policy agenda. We have witnessed recently the way that the European Union, the institutions have been very active on promoting this data economy, on making sure that in their policy agenda, this topic is tackled and is addressed in a very sharp way. These hurdles that SMEs have found have in a way incentivized a fruitful engagement on a dialogue with policymakers. So by bringing the concerns on one hand, and also proposing solutions. And these are mostly focused on promoting an inclusiveness on the access to data. Today we are talking about data. This is perhaps one of the most challenging issues SMEs are faced today. Some examples that one way or the other we are probably aware, and that's been something very worth noting during the recent discussions on the Data Act. For example, the terms and conditions to access to data. So SMEs, what have been proposing to the European Commission and to the policymakers is a fairness of the contractual terms, so that the access to this data is not overburdened with conditions that don't, in the end, don't let SMEs have access in a fair way. Also, standardization. Standardization is a very important tool that, at least in European space, has been very used and has promoted the access to SMEs because it promotes interoperability. So there is no walled gardens that can be created. With this, anyone that is compliant with the standard will have access to a certain information, in this case, to data. And finally, regulation as an enabler to not a bottleneck. This is something that is also very important to note, because sometimes regulation is important to make the market work, but different sizes of organizations, different possibilities of implementing the same rules. So one thing that SMEs have always been very keen on transmitting to policymakers is that when detailing the regulation that needs to be put in place, is that the requirements should be adapted or must be adapted to the size of the organization. Next slide, please. Okay, and I would like first, and just as a, I would say as a trigger for the discussion that will come afterwards, about examples of use cases that have been very important on the implementation of data through research and other activities. I think it's important also to keep in mind that this discussion at the policy level has been very rich. Very recently, we are now discussing the Data Act, but I would like to just focus on these 6 pieces, besides one that is more or less inverted according to the sector. If it's health, it's one thing. If it's finance, it's another thing. But in general, these are called horizontal regulations. These are 6 pieces that are very important to make the life of and the activity of SMEs much more, I would say, balanced and provide more access. So starting with the Data Act, which is the most recent, one of the main principles behind it is the fairness in the allocation of data value among the actors of this data economy. This is very important, and we put a lot of hope on this regulation to make things even more balanced. The Digital Markets Act, it's something that has very recently been reached a political agreement between the institutions, European institutions, and the objective is to tackle the imbalances caused by market power of gatekeepers, meaning platforms that are in the middle between consumers, or being consumers or business to business operators, and the way the power market, the market power that these organizations have, needs to be well regulated. Thirdly, Data Governance Act, which is something that is very important to ensure the trust in data transactions. That is something that is really, the governance is implemented. The Open Data Directive, which is to promote the use of open data. Everyone that works on this field understands the importance of having access to data that sometimes is just lying on organizations that have plenty of information. It can be worked to deliver results, to propose solutions, and this should be focused on an open data model. The flow of data, this is something that is also very important. It should be important that these personal data are data, then the personal data should be able to flow among across Europe. And finally, the GDPR, which is something that has been in our lives now for some years, and for us has been more or less considered one of the best European regulations that has been exported towards the world. I would say that has been a global influence on how the data protection of personal data has been implemented. Today, although it was produced for the European space, any company that wants to have access to the market has to comply with the GDPR. And with that, that would be my conclusion of how the policy is important to be kept in mind. I believe that SMEs have a strong opportunity to contribute to this debate, because that's the way that we can show how the use cases can be implemented, but how the regulation should be favorable of this deployment. Otherwise, it's too difficult if SMEs are kept outside of the proposals. So far, we have seen that the European Commission, which usually has the initiative of the legislation, keeps always a very good opinion on obtaining the insights from the SME community, which shows some confidence. And it's like if we want the European SMEs to keep on producing strong results and delivering on good business models, on the policy making of all this legislation, because it will, in the end, it will be a tool that will allow us to have the let's say the right to operate, and that is very, very critical. And with that, I would end my intervention, hoping that I raised some ideas for the discussion afterwards. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulo, for your very nice intervention and for helping us start with this incredible theme. We will now have a very brief intervention from our other speakers. So Federico, George, Ioannis, and Ricardo will share with us some of the most common challenges they have faced, their SMEs have faced when working with public authorities. I would maybe ask each of them to speak first individually, and then we can discuss it as a group. So I will start with some of you. Might notice we have a Slido. Please answer so we can also see how our audience relates to it. Okay, if it works. And then please, we will go to, sorry, I don't know what's working with the presentation. Sorry, so the most common challenges. Please, Federico, if you can start.
Yeah, I mean, we have established some activities related to smart cities, as some of you might know, as Martel to orchestra cities. And of course, this implies that we are dealing with different public authorities, from cities to companies owned by cities to provide services. And this is often quite a complex challenge, and I would say that the most difficult, there are many items that we might bring to the table, but one of the most complex items is related to the timeline they have, and the projects, especially in the case of smart cities that are very slow, and regarding decision timing. And this is really a problem for small SMEs, because this means that the engagement is very long, and the transformation from lead to an actual contract is also very long, because of different decision time, competence inside the public authorities. And this is really, of course, creating then cash flow issues to the companies, like small companies, and it's really tough to compete against other companies that are bigger and don't have this type of issue in this type of framework, where this type of decision are very slow, and also project stops and restart due to political issues that are totally unrelated with maybe the actual needs of the city and so on. And yeah, that I think is my opening on the type of challenges we usually face with the cities.
Thank you, Federico. So maybe now we can go to George.
Yes, hello. My name is George Agapiou. I'm working for Wings. Wings is an SME here in Greece. Actually, it has made different products out of European projects. So it has made services and products in different areas regarding health, tourism, smart cities, food safety, logistics, and so forth. It has worked also with the public authorities. There are various, I would say, challenges if you have to deal and work with them. Of course, as Federico said, one of them is just they are kind of slow to issue a tender. You need to reply very carefully. Usually you have a lot of issues you have in papers to comply with. Many times they do work on standardized documents. They do expect to have a high quality product from you. So it's also the public is very challenging, like the private sector. Another challenging issue is that, of course, dealing with the public, there are some political issues that you need to overcome. But in general, there is, I think it's a good area that the SMEs, the public is a good area that the SMEs can really deal with in order to evolve and expand their products and their services. And yeah, that's about it. What I wanted to say, Anna.
Thank you, George. So now, please, for the audience, if you want to engage with us, for us to also know what are the common challenges you have faced as an SME, please answer our Slido. And I will introduce Ioannis, please, if you can tell us all the challenges you have faced. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Ioannis Giannoulakis. I am with 8Bells Ltd. This is an SME based in Cyprus and in Greece, and it is 6 years old, with now having about 30 employees. Our main expertise lies in the fields of Internet of Things, cybersecurity, 5G, and other future Internet technologies. We have been also involved in business with some public authorities, both in Cyprus and in Greece. And we have already in hand, from our experience, some products that we support and we are pushing towards commercialization. Now, on the issue that we are discussing, a problem, an issue that I would say face SMEs that are startups, let's say, in their beginning, would be a very complex challenge, would be the lack of confidence and trust to if they can deliver the product they promise. And after delivering this, if they can support what they have delivered. And this is really a complex challenge that one should take into account when preparing a business plan, because many things can be told, and at the end, due to this lack of confidence, not to stop this purchase. As a start, this would be all from me.
Thank you, Ioannis. So now, last, please, Ricardo, if you can answer the same question.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks to everyone who are voting in Slido. Really appreciate this feedback. So on behalf of UbiWare, we are an SME of almost 100 people, but between 15 and 100 people, and we focus on telecom and smart cities. So we are a software development SME. So my challenges, or the challenges that we face, are related to this this software development approach, and I'm basically agreeing with the Paul, because we have to compete against bigger organizations, and when you work with a public authority, they expect that the technology is properly validated, that it doesn't have any risk. So they are, in principle, willing to trust in a large organization who are will have offices in multiple places across the globe and in the major cities, and typically will not, for instance, rely so much on a smaller enterprise from a medium-sized city in Portugal, for instance. So we need to make sure that we propose the innovation linked to these solutions to stand out against the competition, and we need to basically leverage on networks like BDVA to create more awareness and create good partnerships with other SMEs like 8Bells, Wings, and Martel to work together and overcome this challenge and find this collaboration opportunity to stand out and make sure that our potential customers then ensure that we are properly reliable. But in the end, it's the public authority. So the game is typically followed by a procurement process. So again, we need to go through that casino game, and we have to go and compete against other players, and that procurement process can take a long time. So for an SME or a startup or a smaller enterprise who really needs to attract these new customers and secure finance, the procurement process, it might take quite a while, and you might be investing time and resources to reply. Things get withdrawn. You don't win the tender, or somehow something happens in the meantime, and it's challenging because it's not as simple as doing business to business with other private entities. And I noticed that I've talked a lot, so I'll now give the floor to the rest of the panelists to feel free to complement or mention other challenges you might have.
Yes, so if anyone wants to complement each other's answers, please do. Or comment if anyone disagrees or wants to add any more information regarding each other's interventions. If not, I would like also to thank those of you that are participating in Slido, and we will now try and see how research and innovation can help us overcome some of these challenges that our speakers presented. So I will introduce Rita, who will now talk to us about this.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you so much the other speakers for the brief description of the challenges that we are foreseeing as an SMEs. I think that the research and innovation projects can be a really good way to overcome the challenges that we are facing and we face daily with the relation with public authorities. Why I think this could be a good way? Because in UbiWare we have at least some projects that, since we are a company that develops solutions for smart cities, we use these projects to demonstrate the way that how we can collaborate and convert the partners in the projects to customers. So if a public authority works with us in a project and see the positive effect of the innovation and the data sharing, that is something that is starting to be discussed in even more emergent way in these days, they could see how they can improve their cities and maybe develop solutions, software solutions in our case, that can improve the way that citizens see their daily lives in their cities. One example of this is that we have the urban platform that is a core product of UbiWare, that is a platform to manage cities as a whole, a unified way. And this project started, product started as a project. So the cities were able to see how the innovation, how the data sharing can be used and useful for their city, and how the citizens can benefit for that. And that's mostly the way that we are trying to overcome the challenges and start to enrolling most of our partners, public partners, in order to create them a possible customer in the future. I don't know if you other speakers wants to add something in this topic. If you want, please go ahead.
Yes, if you want to add any comment regarding research and innovation and what Rita said, how we can help create new products through this method. Federico, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to just make the interesting story, and probably, I mean, at least we were as well as involved, but there were also another startup engaged in the building of the of this story, let's say. But it's true that also we're mentioning before, as Ricardo, about the fact that you want to be innovative to compete, and you need to build new solutions, and research is clearly something, and the public funding for research, something that can help you in that direction. And on the other aspect, is also true that often when you do this alone is more complex. And back in 2016, we had a project where also Uber was in, and also Oppo, and a set of Mexican partners. And the point was exactly to develop an open platform for IoT, and to test it in some scenario, including smart cities. And this was a first step for many of us in this direction of data sharing enabled platform based on common standards. And given that the outcome of the project was already quite solid and interesting, what we did then was taking advantage of a public pre-procurement, which is again an instrument developed by the European Commission, which is not the normal, let's say, public procurement, but is more a way for public authorities to explore and support the development of technologies that are not yet measured. This public procurement was named Select for Cities, and with Ricardo, we have been working a few months on the submission, and we won the first phase, and where the task was mostly to propose a concept and for a smart city data sharing platform. And then with this work, we were even able to win the second phase, and start really doing work toward trying to productize some of the key outcomes we actually developed in the research project, and also to extend this outcome with the new functionality. And that was then 2018 that this second phase of the public procurement, and this was the point in time also we did together, and then, well, our road split in terms of commercialization, but we did also some work for Wolfsburg, first proof of concept, and then as Martel we took on again activities with Wolfsburg and developed our own product, was based on that outcomes, that was named Orchestra Cities. And yeah, now we are, thanks to this thread of being able to be co-funded in the development of solution and experimenting first with some cities through the procurement action, and this was Antwerp, Helsinki, and well, Copenhagen not much because they stepped out from the pre-procurement project, but then we have been able really to starting to have a product that we went on testing and deploying with cities, and now we have quite a large deployment here in Switzerland for the canton of Zurich and serving different verticals. And yeah, also in these, I would say that citing again what Riccardo mentioned, also the partnership are important, because public funding with the research can help to drive the innovation and so on, but it's also that you as a SME, it's very much more complex to compete compared to large companies that can just inject and decide to invest, I don't know, for a couple of years, 3-4 million euros, and then they get it done, and after that they don't need no one else. For SME, it doesn't work like that. You really need collaboration, as we did with Uber, but also maybe support and building also on top of open initiatives that can help you really to, let's say, focus on some set of core R&D activities rather than having to do everything by yourself. And yeah, that is at least my own experience and the story I can bring, showing how research and innovation can really help to create something, test it with the partner and customers.
I may add to that, Federico, and thanks so much for bringing that up. The whole storyline from Smart SDK up to orchestra cities within the pre-commercial procurement of Select for Cities. Indeed, that's a great story about how the co-creation process, thanks to a research and innovation project, both before in the Smart SDK, working in with the Mexico City, who unfortunately suffered an earthquake back then during the project lifetime. And we saw the authorities actually using the Smart SDK platform and the map view to help record assistance where the geolocation of the assistance needed, and giving this value proposition not just to exploit technology developed in Europe in a Central American country, but also to then have this great value proposition for the community who were suffering a lot back then. And exactly as you mentioned, then picking up this technology and bringing it to market. So it's exactly the kind of steps that I was mentioning before, that you leverage on research, we leverage on research and innovation projects to reduce the risk, to use that funding to further develop the solution, to make it more stable, to validate it in a relevant environment. And the pre-commercial procurement process was actually a great initiative where we do not reply to a finalized tender and compete. We go through a funnel stage. So we go through a phase one of co-specification and creating a new proposal with the cities, where they are still working on the requirements and doing this together with the vendors that are applying, but then going to the prototyping phase and then further on to the pilot. So that's a very nice way to go, where you go through different stages with competing with a lot of people, and it's not just a one-off where you reply to a tender and you either win it or not. You really have this opportunity to go through with them, and they can leverage that funding to partner with you and define the things they need with you, and really understand the technology and leverage on that opportunity to create more digital skills and better skills for them as well. So it's not just good for the SMEs, but also for the public authorities as well, at least in this context of smart cities.
Thank you, Ricardo. I think this brings us to our next topic. So everyone, please join the discussion now. This topic really will open up discussion regarding what was just introduced. So how can SMEs experience with research and innovation bring their idea into new products? So please feel free to share more knowledge, obviously, and more stories. I can start by introducing Federico with Orchestra Cities. If you want to share your idea to product story, please do now.
We discussed it already before, but the point I wanted to make here is also somehow what I believe is important for this type of projects to work out. I think what was making it successful, the transition from what we had in Smart SDK toward our product, and I will say also that the productization that happened in Ubiware was the fact that the project was small, which is not a good practice anymore in many of the EU-funded projects. And why was this, I think, really effective? Because when you have a small set of partners working together that share goals and needs, it's really much more easier to come to agreed solution and common understanding of the direction to be taken. And this is something that in the recent project it's much more difficult to achieve, at least at the level of the platform activities. Of course, it's very much more easy to focus on your own product and your own challenges when you work on showcases and use cases with the specific cities and partner inside the project, because then you kind of form a bubble around that and you focus on that. And this is, for example, something we have been doing recently again with Wolfsburg. But otherwise, in these large projects now, it's much more complex to bring out wide value. And that's why I think now that especially for SMEs, the opportunity more that in the large areas is interesting in the mechanism like ESC pathways or these other ESC transition funding that are meant for small projects that are really helping the transition from ideas to proof of concept, and then from proof of concept to product, and product to wide market. And these are all great instruments that the Commission is providing, and I think there is really, especially in the sector where like smart cities, where it is very difficult to be able to create and boost this innovation just with the commercial activities with the public authorities, because of all the different challenges we mentioned before. These are key instruments, and without that, it will be for SMEs really very extremely difficult to bring innovation and research outcomes to the cities. And on the other side, I think what was a key for us is also the open source strategy, and which is not just about the fact that we leveraged Fireware as a baseline, but also that we have been actively contributing to it and to research projects, but not only, also just from our own investment in these activities, or from doing these activities inside some commercial contracts with AKZ or Wolfsburg. And why I think this was key for us? Well, because when you do this type of activities, especially in the context of smart cities, for them standards are very important. And if something you develop is well accepted in the community and becomes a reference, and even though it's true that it might end up that it is also taken up, like it was our case, for example, for the quantum leap components by other potential competitor. It's also true that mostly maybe these are in other markets and your SME is not much of a problem then. But on the other side, you are the core owner and you get feedback, you get even contribution to that in terms of open source contribution. You build around that a community, and also this is, I think, very key to help you to position and compete against big players that maybe have totally different strategies, and ensure you also the ability to play a role and having a large, let's say, consideration in the context of these communities through which you work. And clearly that was the mechanisms through which we acquired visibility in the context of power, and because and the traction through which we get smart cities projects, but not only in the smart cities context, but also in other contexts like energy and so on. And yeah, so that's it.
Thank you, Federico, for sharing your story. So I will now ask George to share Wing's story from idea to product, please.
Yes, actually Wings has worked in different and quite a few projects, European projects, has found that European projects is a good source, let's say a good pool of funding. And this is important also for SMEs to find this funding in order to make some products and services. As I said before, also Wings has produced different products and tries also to bring those products in the market. Those products pretty much they have come out of research projects. So one area that Wings has concentrated in is to look in areas in research projects to work with where they can be smart, they can gain new knowledge, and finally they can bring some of this knowledge and product to the market. Of course, it's I can say it's a challenging issue to have a prototype in the research and then to have a full product that you have to bring to the market. It takes a good strategy. You need to have a good team in the company to make the product, to maintain the product, to update it, to extend it also. Also, you need to compete with the big players, with big companies. So these European projects give you a chance, besides the funding, to get some new knowledge, to see what other partners are working with. And this is a good idea really if you want to extend and to update or to bring a new product in the market that comes out of these research projects. And as I said, you have to compete with the big players who have all the funds. They do make products, they have good products, so you need to compete with those products. So it's really very, very challenging. And there are quite a few issues that you need to overcome to bring the product from research into business, into the market. So basically that's what, yeah, here you can see really the products that we have produced. And those products came very carefully. I think if you can concentrate in some specific areas, probably you can be lucky, let's say, to come up with some products that you can, after the research project finishes, that you can develop, you can update, you can enhance the product. So Wings has come up with products in different areas, in health, in aquaculture, in agriculture, in logistics, and so forth, in robotics also. And all of this came out really from quite a bit of work and collaboration with other partners and in research and innovation projects. So that's it from my side, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, George. So, Ioannis, please, if you want to share 8Bell's stories from idea to product, the challenges, your experience.
Yes, of course. Yes,
Thank
of
you.
course. Okay, yes, like the previous speaker, Mr. Agapiou and Wings, also 8Bells participates in several Horizon projects. One of them is called the Driades project, which focuses on the forests and the risk of wildfires. There is really the need to assess at any time, especially in the summer, in real time, the risk. And there is the need for evaluation framework and tools to assess this risk. So in this respect, and stemming more or less directly from this project, 8Bells has come up with an idea. So we designed in-house and developed a thermal camera, which is an advanced gimbal-mounted camera, as it is said, that is able to capture the infrared thermal radiation emitted by humans. And it has an extra advantage that it can be mounted on a drone, so it can be used in several other purposes other than just to have it in one stable place. It also supports video analytics and can be used to capture humans and in other grounded maritime applications, in reconnaissance missions, in search and rescue applications, etc. So this is an example in our case, as that from a research project in the Green Deal call, a research project called Driades, a need that we think that we have developed a good example of a product that we are very close to commercialize. So that would be all from our side.
Thank you, Ioannis. So I will now ask everyone to please, while Ricardo and Rita also share Ubiware's challenges and the story from idea to product, to please tell us which actions you foresee exploring when creating an innovative product. So what do you think is required to do, and what you intend to do to be able to create an innovative product? So Ricardo, maybe you can go first.
Sure. Well, in fact, the stories that Wings and Martel and 8Bells have shared are similar to what we leverage on research innovation projects. So when we apply for EU funding grants, we always try to align it with our product roadmap. So we look into strategies from European-wide level. So we are thinking about privacy-preserving technologies or big data strategies, because the European Union wants to stand out and compete against other markets, such as the Asian and American ones, in terms of ICT and technology. So there are these policies and priorities in terms of strategies, and we try to align our own product roadmap to comply with this state of the art and to leverage on that. But the type of participation and the type of initiatives from the research and innovation, we have different types of actions and different types of instruments, but we can look into two more popular, I would assume, from the ICT sector, which are research and innovation actions and innovation actions. And these have different conditions when you get the funding, and they have different requirements as well. But the main approach is that a research and innovation action is expected to produce outcomes in a lower TRL. TRL stands for technology readiness level, and it's considered to really explore the state of the art and create new things, while an innovation action is closer to market, so it's expecting a higher TRL. So to deploy pilots and to test things in relevant environments. And the type of, so we can look at this type of actions as different stages of a product development. So we can think of new features and really new technology that can help us develop on a research and innovation action and really explore new technology, but this is still a bit further from the market. And while an innovation action will allow us to make a pilot with a smart city, for instance, so we can leverage on EU funding initiatives and projects like some of our partners have already mentioned, a couple of them, where they are able to do a pilot. And within these pilots, we can really engage with the community, with the local citizens. We can understand the specific requirements of different member states, of different regions, of different time zones, and we can, from Portugal, we can reach other member states, such as the Netherlands, such as Belgium, Greece, even Italy, and even our neighbors in Spain. So for us, those are the type of actions we foresee exploring, co-creating the solution with the relevant communities in the relevant environment, and allowing us to not just increase the technology readiness level, but actually the market readiness level. So that's a thing that an SME needs to take into account, because we can really focus on research and innovation for really innovative products or innovative concepts, but the market is not ready yet. So we can really explore a lot of innovation technology that we bring to the market too soon. And we've done that before. We've done that with different solutions that we had to withdraw because we brought it to market too soon. The market wasn't ready. We weren't able to commercialize, but thanks to the EU funding, we were able to support such product development without having to close the company and keep growing. So the main actions are these ones. So to really leverage on the available funding, if we are able to get those grants, to research and develop state-of-the-art technology, demonstrate it with relevant environment to increase trust, to reduce the risk, and then demonstrate it to make sure that we can create this portfolio all across the world and create awareness of the capabilities of small, medium enterprises such as Martel, H-Bells, Wings, and Ubiware. And so that's overall what we foresee to explore while creating these products.
I can also add something here, and thank you for the other speakers for the comments. I think that also one thing that we can do, and we are trying to do also in Ubiware, is combine the expertise and the knowledge of different companies. For example, with Waitwells, we wrote a proposal in the last month where we're trying to combine an idea of the product they have and the product that we have to create a better solution and a new prototype for a market that can emerge. So my personal opinion is that besides using the knowledge that we can have as an own company or one company, we can combine also the expertise that we can gain for the collaboration with the other partners in R&I projects, and using this knowledge to create better solutions to the market can be a good way to also create a product from the idea that we have in the beginning.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Ricardo. So now for all of our speakers, we have some questions from the audience, being that the first is directed to all of our speakers. and they are asking what can associations like BDVA do to support SMEs connected to the ecosystem to overcome these challenges? Are there any concrete value proposition that we could develop to support by creating some impact? So please, to all of our speakers, feel free to answer these questions. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to start.
I can kick off and then we move forward to the rest of the panel. So I think that BDVA does a wonderful job by joining together public and private entities, bringing them to the same table, joining different organizations, research, industry, small, medium enterprises, but also bigger organizations. And I think that this collaboration and the awareness that it helps us to create allows us to really prove a point and make sure that we increase the market readiness level, because we create awareness towards our end users and our customers, and allow us to compete a little bit in a more effective way against bigger players that, just as Federico mentioned before, have a different capital capacity and have other instruments that they can use to create the solutions. But I leave the floor also to the rest of the speakers to complement and complete any other ideas.
Yeah, in relation to association like BDVA, I think the key point there is that they helps you to sit together at the table with different companies that share your goals in terms of being able to create data-driven solutions, and even in some specific market sectors. As you know, inside the BDVA there are different working groups, and this helps on a side to create, of course, synergy on the solution side. So what are in terms of architecture or technology, but even standards, good solutions that are effective for a given domain. But on the other side, of course, is also a way to new and meet new actors that are potential partners for you, and that can help you really to outcome some of the gaps that you might have in your own company, given the size you have. And as we now mentioned many times, for SMEs, filling a gap by itself is really challenging. So instead of developing competence on specific item that you cannot cover by yourself, being able to cooperate and onboard the partner with the specific competence that is missing in that specific project, the specific public procurement, is key to be able to compete with larger players that, of course, are much easy to have all the spectrum of competencies required internally.
Thank you, Federico and Ricardo. I don't know if any of the other speakers wish to add anything else to answer these questions that were asked. Giovanni, please.
Yes, maybe. Yes, we should not forget that BDVA plays the role of the private side of its 2020 partnership of Big Data CPPP. And therefore, it helps its mission to develop the innovation ecosystem all around Europe, being an open community. So I think that this helps a lot.
Thank you for your input. I don't know if George or Rita want to add anything else.
Yes, I can add some. Sorry, George, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, if I can add, BDVA, since it's an association organization, usually they have a good step, let's say, in European Commission. So they can push forward, let's say, ideas. They can bring ideas that can have more SMEs really to work together. So I think BDVA has has a chance really to bring some innovative ideas to the European Commission in order to have more SMEs to be involved in those ideas.
Yes, that's a line what I would start saying, that I think that BBDVA can have here a good opportunity to help us, and has been helping us to connect ideas and share some important thoughts in order to overcome some of the challenges that we are facing. And mostly, I think that's it.
So, if I may, I see that Anna is asking in the comments that what specific services could be of use for us, SMEs. And I will pick up on the procurement process, for instance. We receive regular newsletters from BDVA showcasing funding opportunities, open calls, workshops, different events. That's a really useful service already available. But sometimes we have other opportunities that are not written in English, that are not available in a common language. They are, for instance, I'm thinking that I don't speak Greek, or I don't understand how to read Greek, right? But Ioannis and their colleagues, they are, and they can keep up with the tenders that come up from within the Greek market. And the same for us, that we have tenders in Portuguese, and we have to reply and apply in that language. So a potential good service that could be of benefit would be to try to support, for instance, Greek SMEs to apply and have a translation capabilities to apply to these standards, and find this cooperation within the BDVA consortium or ecosystem. And that's just one use case. I mean, by working with natural language processing and artificial intelligence and all that data capabilities, I'm pretty sure that we can even find a way that reduces the costs of having such translation capabilities. And I know that there are set building blocks, so the European Commission building block tools for e-translation, and that's available for free for SMEs as well. So we know that there are tools available there. But you know that there are still some nuances and some local context that only a native sometimes understand. And the translation, we can have a loss in translation event, and having something that is misunderstood and creates a challenge for us. So we know that working with public authorities, they like to have a good contact point and rely on one specific entity who speaks and who lives in the same context as they do. That's perfectly understandable and natural in the human relationship. And probably potentially we could have this sort of matchmaking where different SMEs, for instance, are not working in the same domain. So, for instance, an SME for smart cities could help another one in the agriculture to find an opportunity, and they can collaborate in the proposal and have this sort of distribution mechanism and create a stronger point, but also on helping out on how to get the real context and the proper translation. But that's just out of my head. I mean, potentially George, Ioannis, and Federico, you might have, in Rita, of course, might have other ideas of services that could help in this context and working with public authorities.
So if no one wants to add anything, I'm just going to drop a small question for all of our speakers. So before I'm going to go back to the other slide, we had some people answering the, sorry, in the wrong way, answering the topic we had about the actions they foresee exploring. So I'm going to ask all of our speakers to tell us about what they think regarding funding and pilots and market analysis, end users or citizens engagement, and how these projects can help us create innovative products. So please, Federico, George, Ioannis, Ricardo, Rita, tell us what you think that these actions, the role these actions play in creating such products.
Yeah, I believe that clearly, you know, when you build a product, you build it for someone, and the better you know this someone, and the more you can engage with him, the better you serve his needs. And often the problem is that is not easy to get out of this end user really what they need, and this is probably one of the biggest challenge beside engaging them, is really having the ability to keeping them engaged in the exploration of the understanding of what are their needs and what are the best solution to their needs. And clearly here co-creation type of approaches are really key, and gamification, all this type of innovative way to interact with your end user and stakeholders are really a way that helps you to explore in a very impactful way the needs, and help you to shape and innovate your products.
Yes, if I can say also a few things. As we said, for SMEs, it's really important to have the funding. So research is one, let's say, one good source to get the funding. We know that recent project like Horizon 2020, they had the end user engagements. They had also market analysis, market surveys, and so forth. So the end user engagement was very important because with their involvement, an SME can understand what their needs are, what are their requirements. Is very important to make a product, to know what the requirements of the end user are. So this Horizon 2020 gave the opportunity for the SMEs to know quite a bit of the requirements and the expectations of the end users. And I believe Wings has really the strategy, you know, to work in such European projects together with end users in order to bring something useful in the market, a useful product in the market. And I think all of those things were very nice and were very well tackled in recent Horizon 2020 projects. So that's basically my opinion for this, Anna.
Thank you, George. I don't know if Ioannis or Rita and Ricardo want to add anything. Thank you, Ioannis.
Yes. Okay, I can come up with a short roadmap, some steps that I have in my mind, and tell you where potentially I could see the role of the end users. So when it comes the time to turn an idea into an actual product, someone has to make a roadmap, okay, to make some steps. First of all, you need to analyze and validate the idea itself, and then to conduct research to see if the idea is unique or it is in the market already, etc. these are the two of the 5 steps where I see the role of the end users is vital. Then investing in your idea and trying to get a prototype, there could be, in the investment side, I don't see the role of the end users. Building a prototype, there could be a role at the validation phase. And finally, commercializing the product by building a business plan. This is internal. This has to be realized by the SME itself. So in 2 or 3 out of the 5 final steps, I think that the role of the end users is crucial and can add many benefits by involving them in the procedure.
Thank you so much, Ioannis, and the rest of you for your inputs. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. Now is the time for you to ask us any questions you might still have from the presentation, or if you do want to share some particular experience with those challenges. If not, then we would like to thank you all for participating in our session and for participating in our Slido and interacting with the speakers and with yourselves. And on behalf of Ubiware, 8 Bells, Wings, and Martel, and also on behalf of Paulo, I would like to thank you all for assisting to our session. And if you have any questions or doubts, please feel free to get in touch at hello@ubiware.com. Thank you very much for everything. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions of Data Week.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the Data Week. Thanks for hosting us. And I hope this was useful and provided useful information. We're happy to keep the discussion going via email, social media, so feel free to contact us. Thanks once again, Federico, George, Ioannis, and Rita. And thanks, BDVA, Mattia, and Sina for the support here in the organization.
Thank you very much for hosting us.
Yep.
Thank you.
And for inviting us.
Thank you very much also.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for the invitation. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.